So welcome to this special segment of the Republican Hour, and this is a little interlude. We haven't done this before, so we'll have to see how it all plays out, but thank you for being here and watching this half hour of the show. I have a very special guest with me on this segment, a friend who I've known for a long, long time. He at one time or another was the communications director at the state Republican committee. And then somewhere along the way, sanity struck, and he went to the private sector where they actually pay slightly better wages, and has been very active in social media and alternative media. Is a great guy, very good friend of mine, Ken Grant. Ken,
thank you very much, Charlie.
You know, you've got sort of I'd call it a cult following, except that there are too many people to be a cult. And so it's like a popular following. I mean, you might want to run for office because you got so many people behind you now.
Never.
Never say never. But you went on what a lot of people would have called a quixotic search, tilting at windmills, or should I say more appropriately, tilting at parking meters. And so some months ago, you had it up to here with parking, and you're a tall guy, so that here for you.
It's pretty high up
so
there,
what?
yes.
How did this whole parking meter thing come about?
Well, first I have to say, as far as I know, I've never gotten a parking ticket in Wilmington. Newark, yes. A few other cities, yes. Get them, pay them, whatever. Never had one in Wilmington, so that really wasn't the issue. The issue is there are so many of us who see Wilmington as this great, awesome city that is on the cusp of becoming truly a nationally recognized great city to be in. You've got obviously the great history with the DuPont Theater and the Grand, now with the Queen Open, with everything that's happening in the Loma District. Whether it's for artists, entrepreneurs, web developers, anybody, Wilmington is really becoming a home to a lot of great people, and a great place to visit, a great place to spend time. My wife and I spend a lot of time in Wilmington. We live in Newark, but any chance we get, we're in Wilmington. And so as many of us are trying to drag our friends in and get those people in the suburbs to come in and experience this and enjoy this, the one thing I kept hearing over and over again is, I'm afraid I'll get a parking ticket. And then I'd get the horror stories from people about parking tickets they got that they were convinced were illegitimate.
Well, and I have to admit that having basically been within 3-4 miles of downtown Wilmington for the vast majority of my entire life, I'll drive up a street and see empty spaces and look at the sign and go, am I able to park now? Can I not park now? Is it and so then you're sitting there going, well, now what do I do?
Exactly. So that's part of the problem. So back in October, a friend of mine, we were just chatting, and they tell me about this horrific experience that they had in trying to resolve an issue. Now, again, there's someone who gets tickets, just nature of their job. They're constantly, having to run in and out of places and everything, and you get into a conversation, you get a ticket, whatever.
Right.
Happens to all of us. And they always pay their tickets. And one day, my friend gets this notice in the mail: you haven't paid your ticket, there's an extra $100 fine now, whatever. Geez. And they didn't know they had a ticket to begin with. So they go in, this wasn't done by letter, they go into the Department of Finance and they say, okay, look, I never knew
where they're treated with dignity and respect.
Well, yeah, well, that's just it. They went in and said, never knew I had this ticket. It either blew off, somebody took it off, who knows, whatever. But I'm okay with paying the ticket. Can we just
penalties.
Remove the penalties? Sure. Because that's
right.
just
I didn't
isn't
know.
Right. Didn't know. And not only were they told no, they were then called a scofflaw and accused of not paying the rest of their bills on time and all kinds of wacky stuff.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's an extreme situation there, and it just, right. I just wanted to blow off a little steam and maybe get some attention.
And how is that enticing somebody from outside the city to come
exactly.
and frequent Wilmington businesses, which then pay taxes and
Right.
employ people and everything else, if you're chasing them away because of a $60 fee on top of a fine that they didn't know they had.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I put together, just a fun little animated video, just showing this little thing, and threw it out there. And again, this is the beautiful part about this new age we're living in, where it used to be, to get someone's attention on something like this, you'd have to stand out on a street corner and sound like an idiot,
Right.
basically.
Get on your soapbox.
Exactly.
Right.
And now you can create something, hopefully fun and interesting, and put it out there, and people respond to it.
Well, and you are sort of, like the social media lesser deity of Delaware. I mean, you have earned a name for yourself. Well deserved, I might add.
I appreciate it. I think there's a mythology that's growing there that I can't really take full credit for it. But based on that, when people saw that, I started getting more stories.
Right.
And I realized just how pervasive this issue was on many levels. And again, I saw this as the roadblock to Wilmington becoming this place that everyone would want to come and spend time in. So from that, I created this little risk-o-meter thing in some of my emails. If you come to this event, which I hope you will, but just so you know, it's happening in midday on Market Street, and your risk of getting a ticket are pretty high. So park in a garage, whatever. And that's when the city reached out to me and said, "Okay, what's the problem? What's going on here?" Now
I have to admit, because you did the one video, but there's some other videos that were then created.
That came a little later.
This was after the first meeting with the city.
Well, no, this was the city called and said, "Let's, what's the problem? Let's talk." And I said, "Okay, great. There's systematic issues here that need to be looked at, addressed, and dealt with." And the initial response was, "No, just let us know about the specific incidents that you're dealing with." And I think this is something that a few people have commented on, that the city up until recently has been trying to go out and resolve each little issue as it came up, one by one, rather than saying, there might be a bigger problem here that we should address.
Maybe the ordinance is fouled up. Maybe the signage is fouled up. Maybe the meters aren't working right. The big picture, they were going after the minutiae.
Everything was, send us the... Now, so I did. I started sending them these very specific cases. Here's, John with his ticket issued on this date, and, here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. And they went through and they addressed every single one of them.
Wow.
But still, we're not taking a look at the bigger picture. And I sent them emails saying, here's maybe a few ideas, like create a spot on the website where people can figure out what the rules are. Right. Because right now it's very, at that time it was extremely confusing. It was just go check the city code. And as well as I do, going through code is not an easy task. It's not an inviting task. It's not something that many people have the patience to
code,
to
whether it's the city code, the county code, state
right.
code, federal code. It is not written in the Queen's English.
It is not.
It is, you can figure it out, but it takes a while of slogging through it.
So the city was like, we're not too interested in that. And I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And this is the key thing, again, this the beauty of this age we're living in, where you don't have to get someone else to do this. You can create, anybody can go right now into a library, sit down at a computer, create a blog, and for free, and start posting stuff. And that's exactly what I did. I think so far in this entire campaign, I've spent $3.84, or something like that.
And none of that was on a parking ticket.
And none on the parking ticket. So I created the blog, got a few people together, and said, okay, let's start putting together these public service announcements.
Those are all the videos that,
So these were the videos. So tongue firmly planted in cheek as we explored some of these ideas. Like, people had gotten parking tickets before they could get out of their car to put money in the meter.
Because the ordinance says you shall pay the meter immediately. I love that video where they say, since we can't change the laws of physics, and as a physics guy, I found that to be particularly
So yeah, we have fun putting those things together. Now I do.
I want to say the video where they talk about that. So they say the only way you can appropriately follow the law is to pay the meter before you park. So this guy drives down the street, sees a parking space, stops his car in the middle of the street, gets out, puts money in the meter, and while he's doing this, cars are lining up behind him. They're honking their horn. They're yelling at him. I suspect you could probably look through some of the windows and see them using certain physical movements to indicate their personal opinion about this guy blocking traffic, because all he's trying to do is follow the law.
Exactly. So the interesting thing with that is I really thought we had done that so over the top that everyone would get it. I've actually gotten a few emails and phone calls from people saying, I don't care what the city says, I think that's wrong. You need to still park the car first, then put the money in.
Not everybody has a sense of humor.
Once I explain to them the real purpose behind it, then they get it and laugh, and life is good. So that was a major issue. Next major issue that we saw was the fact that the signs were absolutely confusing. Do you pay to park on Saturdays? Because a lot of the signs downtown say, 2-hour parking except Sunday.
Right.
And so you just think, okay, Sunday is the day. And if you'd go up and down Market Street and ask the business owners, now these are the people who own the business,
want you to come in,
right? And they were not sure of what you normally heard was. Well, the parking regulation enforcement officers are not working on Saturday, but if a Wilmington police officer wanted to, they could ticket you.
Well, and Lord knows they have nothing better to do with their time on a Saturday than drive around looking for parking scofflaws, because there is no crime in the city of Wilmington.
So what you have is people saying, well, it's kind of a roll of the dice. You kind of cross your fingers, hope that you don't get a ticket. But the reality is, if you dig through the code, because I had time on my hands, I actually did, you find that no, the city code is very clear. There's no need to pay for parking on Saturdays or Sundays. So we went ahead and put together a fun little public service announcement addressing that issue.
That's where we had the commercial real estate agent or whatever say, well, I'm a real estate agent, let me tell you. That's right, that's funny.
And by the way, a little behind the scenes inside stuff here. We actually try plugging different things in these videos as well. So the real estate agent is actually holding a book by Rachel Simon, who is a local, well, she lives locally, but she's a nationally known author. Yeah. And so, that's kind of prominently featured in a couple of scenes there. So a little subtle.
Kind of like an Alfred Hitchcock kind of a guy, right?
There's, although I need to stress, I think I would have failed in the Ed Wood School of Filmmaking. Okay, these are not works of art, as many people have commented.
They're funny. They're funny.
There's no Oscars being given to this guy for writing.
You're pointing out the absurdity of code and how it's negatively impacting dozens of people a day and giving them a negative perception of the city of Wilmington when the city needs all the positive promotion that it can get.
Exactly. And then there were our friends over at Poppycock Tattoo who have the residential stickers. These are people who have really invested in the life of the city. Right. They bought that property. They live there. That's their business. Right. They've put on many events for the city. They're participants in the Art Loop. These guys, if ever you want people in your city that get it, these are them. And yet they were getting illegitimate ticket after illegitimate ticket after dozens,
even though they had the neighborhood sticker on
even with the sticker on the car. So there we thought, okay, maybe the parking officer is not seeing the sticker, so we'll create a method for people to print out much larger stickers, and actually one is there's one that I have that's a good 2 feet high. It just like covers the entire back of a truck, let alone a car. So that video got a lot of attention.
I have a friend of mine who has had a business in the city, and they had deliveries, right? They're making deliveries around the city. and of course you're delivering during business time, and so the streets parking all those spaces, and so they double park, flashers on to run and make the delivery, and they were getting ticket after ticket. So they finally got a meeting with the mayor's office, and they said, look, you know, we're getting ticket after ticket. All we're trying to do is conduct business in the city. Our business is in the city, and what's really even worse is that FedEx and UPS aren't getting tickets. And he said, you know what the net result was? They started ticketing FedEx and UPS too. You're missing somebody. You got to get everybody.
Again, let's take a step back and look at the. Okay, now, so all of this led to now. As much as social media does for you, it still doesn't reach the people that traditional media does.
Sure.
So with Rick Jensen talking about it on his show, with the News Journal running the front page stories, this quickly became a huge thing. And
with Bill Montgomery running for mayor, he certainly would, you know, it beats handing out $1,000 to all city employees.
And in the middle of all of this, when news gets out that the mayor has gotten a couple of tickets, you know, that's when I think things really shifted into high gear. During this time, of course, we were in the process of scheduling this meeting to come in and sit down and discuss this with city officials. I have to say, what's been beautiful about this is the way the community has responded and really come together on this. Whether it's, you know, helping put together some silly, stupid videos, or you know, just volunteering to say, you know what, we're willing to help create solutions here, brainstorm with you, come up with ideas. The community, the business community, the arts community, everybody has come together to really make some things happen. We went into that meeting on January 13th. I got to tell you, I heard it from dozens of people. I was fully expecting to go in, sit down, have everybody nod their heads for a couple of hours as we talked about this, and walk away and nothing
if
of
we
substance.
Act like we care, maybe he'll go away.
Yeah, I was prepared for that. But
they did better than that.
It turned out to be a good, productive meeting. I think we really started to see eye to eye on a lot of things. Yeah. And I was impressed with what they brought to the table right away, as they said, okay, here's what we are looking at doing. And then within days after that meeting, they produced their outline for things that they plan to address immediately. Things like fixing the signs in the area, putting stickers on to let everybody know what's that you don't have to pay on Saturdays. Making things clear, posting things on a website that lets people know in plain English, here's what's going on.
Again, before this, they had no incentive to do that, because if I make it clear that you don't have to pay on Saturday, all of a sudden I'm losing revenues, and I'm building those revenues into my budget. And so by creating the negative, you created through social media, the videos, the word of mouth, the negative force, the competitive force that said you might lose other revenues if you don't address the what you're doing wrong here.
I would like to think that message has come through, and again I really appreciate the way that they've responded. And by no means are we at anywhere near a finish line on this. We've just gotten started, but it's off to a really good start, and I see this probably playing out pretty well over the next few months. And I think as we continue to dive into things like the booting issues, red light cameras, some of the training of the officers and so forth, I think we're going to see some real substantive changes take place. The goal here is not just to have a system that's mildly better than what it used to be. The goal is to have something that becomes a model system that other cities look to and say, wow, they got it right.
Yeah, it is certainly true that the city has the right to charge for somebody to park on the street.
Absolutely.
We could debate from a public policy perspective, is that helpful when you've got shopping malls that they don't, but there's not as many spaces on the street, and so it's a shared resource and all that kind of thing. And so what you want to do is create the best system that you can, that when somebody abuses the system, They get penalized for it when they use the system as it's designed. Businesses, benefit because customers are able to come and go,
Right.
and people don't have to schlep down to the Department of Finance to say, hey, I wasn't parked there for 2 hours. I was parked here for an hour, and I was parked here for an hour, and I moved the car in between, which is what happened to the mayor in at least one of his tickets. And how do you address those questions?
And I can tell you that those they're coming up with some interesting solutions to that too, because we've talked about it, and they're working on a system right now that if it rolls out, I think we'll have some pretty good things happening. The beautiful part is the response that the community has offered. Now, I have to say, people are somehow see this as a once in a lifetime kind of thing. Wow, you fought City Hall and you won, and I would like to think that I simply engaged City Hall. And
I'm a Clash fan. I fought the law and the law won. Anyway, that's.
But I would like to think that rather this could be a template that others could use to address any issue, whether it's at the city level, the county level, the state level, even the national level. But for the most part, we all see things and we say, wow, this could be done better, whether it's something in our neighborhood or our state or whatever. And rather than, and this quite frankly got real old for me when I kept hearing from people early on, well, why don't you just support the right candidate for mayor, and when that person gets in next year, then there'll be change. And I think that's a lazy way to do it, and I think our society is suffering from that kind of a mentality.
Sure.
Instead of saying we're a community and we can come together and actually make things happen, people are sitting around saying, well, let's just elect the next guy. And let's face it, we end up.
And the problem with that is, especially in the city, but in Newcastle County as well, and increasingly in the state of Delaware, is that we're subject to one-party rule, and I don't care which party it is. And I've said that on my show. This is the Republican Hour, but I've said it on this that one-party rule under any scenario is that competition works. And there is an election coming up in the mayoral's race and for all the various city council persons. And so that might have gotten a few people more motivated, but ultimately what really got them motivated was the fact that here was an issue that was an irritant to hundreds of people. And as an individual, I had no stake in the solution. I could not create any sort of groundswell on my own to convince the mayor, the mayor's chief of staff, city council persons, anybody to say, yeah, we could fix this, we could make this better for the citizens, because we were just handling it. And you were able to sort of corral a broad array of forces, progressive Democrats, conservative Republicans, art students, business owners, just the average person driving their darn car down the street saying, I want to find a place to park. And that's a tribute to you.
Well, I appreciate that. Years ago, someone much smarter than me, but not as smart as you, I think said.
Oh, I know that person.
Yeah. Basically, you go out and you just plant your flag, and make sure it's a big flag, and say, this is where I stand.
Right.
And people will respond to that, and that's exactly what happened here. I have to be honest with you. I've been shocked at the number of prominent people that I assumed would not approve of the methodology of stirring things up or whatever, and yet all of them would pull me aside and say, "Keep it up. Here's my experiences. Here's whatever." Just
one of the things, and I've said it on my show before, is that Delaware has a blessing and a curse, and that's called the Delaware Way. And what it really means to me is that a lot of people go around and they're polite to one another even though they disagree. And they say, well, I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And this situation that could be fixed, that needs to be fixed, won't be fixed because I don't want to offend anybody.
Exactly.
Now, fortunately, I have no problem with offending people, as the people who watch this show would probably know. But because I think, again, the competition works, and the only way you have competition is for somebody to plant that flag and say, I disagree. And I can do it civilly, I can do it politely, I can even do it with humor, which is what I tend to do, because I think that that, you know, smile when you call me an SOB, and I might not like it, but at least it goes down easier.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of people that, you know, saw what you were doing and frankly thought to themselves, you know, I wish I had spoken up, or I had said something, or I had thought to do that, but because of the Delaware way, I didn't want to do that. Thank goodness there was somebody who was willing to stand up and say, you know, we got a problem here. And all of a sudden everyone said, yeah, we do have a problem here.
Just realize that a lot of this, the problem is we have systems. We have these machines, these bureaucracies that simply keep churning the way they have for so long. And what they thrive on is, actually I don't even think they pay attention when one or two people, you know, get mad, jump up and down, holler, bang on the system a little bit, and go away.
Right.
And that's what we have is we have a society where people get really upset about something for all of 10 minutes and then they walk away.
Right, right.
And until you demonstrate to that system, quite frankly, we've allowed this whole thing to occur.
Well, and that's, I mean, if you look at criminal justice and some of the issues that we've had in our criminal system and our correction system, and minimum mandatories, and some of those issues that when I was in the legislature became serious issues, and I went and I toured the prison and I saw the inequity of the treatment, and I saw crimes in the city being given double penalties because of where they occurred, not because of what occurred, and so worked with Surge, Stand Up for What's Right and Just, and took over the board of that, and we were able to over time build that coalition to change the drug law sentencing and reform it so that drug laws now are treated identically across the state, and they're treated in a way that if you are a dealer, you are going to jail. If you're a user, you have the opportunity to get help. Now it's up to the governor and others to make sure that that help is available, and they're working on that, but not as far as I would certainly like. But again, that was a 10-year effort, a 10-year activity. It doesn't happen overnight, and so the fact that in 3 or 4 months you were able to get as far as you are, but as you said, it's still not finished.
But I will say I'm shocked. I've in November I had a year-long plan to kind of try to get some of these things resolved. And where we are today, I did not expect to be until July or August. So I'm pleased and impressed that we've gone
now
this far.
If somebody watching today wanted to get more of the details and see some of the videos, what would they do? Where would they go?
That would be wilmingtonparking.blogspot.com.
wilmingtonparking.blogspot.com.
And and again,
if they Google Wilmington Parking, they probably will find it, because I can't imagine there are too many other keyword searches for Wilmington Parking.
And of course, someday I can just imagine the city of Wilmington might link to it from their website. That's
as a historical note reference. You know, back in the old days when our parking was bad.
If you go through you know, all the posts from the early days on, you should see a definite change in tone from, you know, the frustration and anger and everything else to now, wow, things are happening. Let's continue to encourage this stuff.
And it's your position, I think you're right, that on any issue, that if somebody feels passionately enough about it, and you know, education, crime, trash in the streets, economic development, that by, you know, creating and using social media and blogs and video and getting other people involved and sort of nailing that down, that you can start to move our public policy people in a direction that is better for everybody.
I think we're on the verge of a whole new society because of that. And if we were sitting here a year ago and I said, oh, by the way, the Middle East is going to completely radically change over the next few months, you would have thought I was smoking something.
Yeah.
But it's because of having these tools that allow people to come together and make these changes that we've got it happening.
Well, I want to say on behalf of Republican Hour and the people watching and the people who watch who periodically have to park in the city and are trying to, and the business owners in the city, thank you for your great public services. Ken Grant, good friend of mine, and wilmingtonparking.blogspot.com. discourage.com. There are some really funny videos, and you can see this whole thing about how one guy, bringing in a bunch of friends, really turned what's been a nuisance in the city and a negative on the city, and is starting to move it into a positive.